Awesome. Kia ora, everybody. Welcome to episode 23 of Bastards of Knowledge. Afternoon, Tani. How are you this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm going good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Yeah, another day. No dollars because I'm still on leave, which is great. Tani, what have you been doing? What have you done over the last few days or the last few times since we've spoken on our last podcast? What have you done to fill up your basket of knowledge?
Yeah, I think what I've learned coming into this podcast is that time flies, no matter what you're doing. And, I was talking to you before we started recording that, when I first moved to Blenheim this time around, I thought, oh, yep, I know what Blenheim has to offer, so I can have a couple of weeks to settle in and then start doing things. But before I know it, I've only had a couple of weeks left to try and fit everything in. So it just goes to show that, there's the point where you should actually plan some stuff, even if you're not sure that you'll do it right away. At least then you have a to-do list to do before you finish doing something. And I think the same can be said when you go into anything, if you're going on a holiday or you're doing something, you're often like, oh, I'll just settle in. But before you know it, the time's over and you wish you'd done more.
Yeah, that's right. Time does fly. Time does fly. And that links really well to my learning. My learning is pay your bills on time because that's pretty important. Because what happens is you get your bill and you're like, oh, I'll pay it tomorrow, whenever, and then time flies and you don't pay the bill, and then your internet gets disconnected, and you're like, oh, what do I do? Which one happened to me today? So it's like, what happened? Why have I got no internet? It's because I haven't paid my bill. So pay your bills on time because time flies. So nothing crazy about nothing wise there. Just pay your bills. Once again, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And as always, we have another fantastic guest. And this afternoon, we are not going to be disappointed again because we have a fantastic guest, and her name is Cristina. Cristina, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No worries. Thank you for joining us. Cristina, to start off our podcast, do you want to tell listeners a bit about yourself? Who are you, where you're from, and then we'll get into it.
So I'm Cristina. I'm from Dunedin and I grew up there, but I'm currently living in Stewart Island. I've been here all summer working, and yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So for those of you that are listening to us from overseas, Stewart Island is an island that people forget about. You hear about the North Island and the South Island. You might hear the Chatham Islands, and then there's this other place called Stewart Island, which is basically a little rock in the middle of at the bottom of New Zealand, and we'll talk about how Cristina ended up there over summer. So Cristina, the reason why we have you on here today is because you've taken a different pathway. You finished up school in Dunedin, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you decided you decided to gap year. So let's talk about year 13 for you. So if you can remember back, so you're in year 13, and what is that like for you? What is year 13 like? Your final year of school?
Well, I had my year 13 when it was the first lockdown. So I was pretty lucky in the sense that we did a lot of work in the first section of the year. So by the time I was in lockdown, I was kind of set for a few of my subjects with my exams. So I spent a lot of the lockdown kind of reflecting on a lot of things and being able to take the time away from school itself. Made me kind of realize that the school environment that I was in was not a good one. So there was all of that. And then going back to school was super hard. I had a lot of friends who only lasted about 3-5 days. And then they were like, we completely burnt out. We can't do this anymore. So they would be studying from home. And I was kind of in a similar space, but my mental health deteriorated even more than it already was bad. And then I ended up being on medical leave for all of the last term because I just couldn't handle being at school. So I was studying from home. So it was rough to say the least. I think year 13 was hard for a lot of people, but that's kind of my year 13.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's pretty important for people to realize that, it's not always hunky-dory and roller coaster. There are struggles. You mentioned there that you realized that the school environment wasn't the right place for you. What does that mean? What does that look like? What does that look like?
Well, for me, in school, I loved learning and I loved being at school and being in the classroom environments where I was always learning stuff and being around people who are also interested in learning. And then it kind of turned into a thing of, yes, I still love school and I still love learning, but the people around me weren't the best anymore. So having people being constantly put in a box of, you're smart, but you're not that smart, so we can use you to steal our notes and answer our questions in class, and that sort of thing, as well as just like constant comments. And friendships were always super hard. Like, they were always demanding a lot from me, and never giving much back. So for me, being able to remove myself from that situation and be like, look, these people are my friends because we see each other at school every day. They're not my friends because we genuinely have a friendship going on, kind of thing. Yeah.
That's such a point there, because a lot of people just become friends with people because they see them every day. But if you think about it, sometimes they're not the kind of people that you would really attract into your lives. Tana, did you ever have that in your life? Did you ever feel that?
At certain points I did, and especially I think academically that was the case. But I was lucky enough that, you know, I could fit into the sports scene, and so I could have different groups of friends, which kind of allowed me to branch out if I did feel like a certain group was just using me or weren't really connected in the way that I thought they were. So it was good for me that I did have other friends outside of the academic or outside of the sport that allowed me to just take a break from that certain scene.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I mean, you have to have those outlets, and but again, you're gonna have to go back into the other outlet there and see those people that are not your friends, in inverted commas. So that would have been tough for you. And what made you decide that school wasn't for you in that year? So you had the lockdown. You were doing stuff online, great, fantastic, and then you go back to school. What is the breaking point for you, I guess?
Kind of came to a realization. I mean, for me personally, I was pretty much in denial for most of the year. I was like, you know what, this is just how life is, kind of thing. And then nearing the end of term 3, I realized, hey, it's not actually normal for you to hide in a room during breaks and lunches and trying to avoid your friends. And I was completely throwing myself into my study, trying to kind of avoid the people in my year, but even then my grades were still slipping, and so things like that. And it came to the realization that this isn't healthy and this isn't right. So I talked to my parents and I talked to my dean at school, and they were like, okay, you can not go to school anymore on the one condition that you do go to counselling, which I think was fair enough and a really great decision to do.
Yeah, well, awesome. So, and that's awesome. So you reached out and they had this great advice for you. And tell us what that was like for you, because you know, there's a big stigma around counseling and going to counseling. How was that for you as a pre-counseling and then post-counseling, I guess, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I do understand how you said that there is a bit of a stigma, and I would prefer to use the past tense with that a lot, because yes, I've noticed in the past that there has been quite a stigma for it, but moving forward, like the few friends that I did mention to that I was going to counselling, they'd also been to counselling, and it's very open and it's very kind of a normal thing to do. It's like, oh, okay, you know, we're super proud that you're getting the help that you need, kind of thing, and that you're doing what you need to do to be a better person, rather than kind of just hiding away and not talking about it. So yeah, I feel like the perspective on that has really changed. And yeah, no, it was really good for me to be able to have that outlet, just kind of that someone separate who wasn't in my life, to be able to talk to about everything was really good. Yeah.
Awesome, fantastic. And that's obviously helped you quite a bit, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so here you are, you're now schooling from home. And how was that for you? You know, so you've now made this active choice with your family and your school to now you're schooling from home. Did you feel disconnected though? Because, you know, year 13 is a big year for so many reasons. Did you feel like you're missing out? Was there a bit of FOMO going on there, or were you all good with that?
At that point, I just needed to prioritize my own mental health. So I was kind of doing schoolwork at home, but in reality, I wasn't. as much. I had this thing where what I'd do every day is I'd do one thing that was productive, even if that be small, say reply to one email, or it be finish an assignment, do one small thing that was productive. And sometimes it wasn't even school related. It was, okay, today I'm going to clean my room. And then do one thing that was good for my mental health. If that be like, okay, today I'm going to eat a good healthy meal or go for a walk, something like that. So for me, it was just doing two small things, one productive and one for my mental health. Every day really, really helped. In terms of feeling kind of excluded, I guess, or missing out, not really. At that point, I was very disconnected from everyone in my year group. I'd already made the decision earlier in the year to not take any leadership roles because I knew that I wouldn't be able to handle that. So in that kind of sense, there wasn't much of that at all. I had a few friends who, I only told a few of my friends that I wasn't going to be coming back to school anymore. And from that on, it was pretty much, just I didn't really talk to anyone, which was great for me, to be honest. I kept the good friends that I had and I kept in touch with them. But other than that, it was good to not be able to have any of those people around anymore. Yeah.
That's very, very true. And I love how you broke your day into those two manageable things there. You know, those, you didn't go, I'm going to do 50 things or 20 things. You're like, cool, just one thing for my mental health and one thing productive. And I think we can all take that away and go, actually, when things are overwhelming, if we just do one thing for mental health and one thing for whatever productivity is, that's a pretty awesome thing. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to take that away. And Tanya, so you'll take that away as well. So obviously, not obviously. So you had made this decision. You were now doing what you need to do to get yourself better. Now comes the end of term 4. You do your exams, whatever way you do, the best that you can. You have a choice now of, not a choice, I guess, technically you finished up school now. You have the choice of going to a tertiary provider, but you decided not to do that. When did you make that decision not to go to a tertiary provider?
So I made the decision in year 12, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I was like, I wanted to go and travel.
Yeah.
So I spent half of year 12 and most of year 13 earning money and building contacts. So I had this whole plan out. I was going to go to Costa Rica and do some work with some wildlife conservation out there. And then I was going to go to Chile, where they've got this island, and do some research with whales and dolphins, and then kind of see kind of where it went from there. And I'd earned all the money and I had it all sorted, and then COVID happened, which quite drastically changed the plan.
So crazy. So now you go. So why year 12? What happened in year 12 that made you decide that you didn't want to go to university or to tertiary school? What is the point, I guess?
Well, I figured, if not now, when, kind of thing. You know, if it's not before uni, then it will be either during uni or after uni. But it's like I wanted to get a degree at least, you know, to have that as a fallback if anything did happen. So I wouldn't want to do it during my uni degree. And then after uni degree, I was like, well, chances are life will happen. I'll find a job, do something else that I really like, you know. So I was like, might as well just do it now, kind of thing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's as good as any reason out there, isn't it? I mean, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So you had all this money saved up. You had this year, like South America, here I come, and then COVID goes, no, you're not going anywhere. What happens then for you?
So then I changed the plan, and I was going to travel around New Zealand, and I had a bunch of places lined up where I was going to be doing mostly conservation work with DOC, volunteering at wildlife hospitals, that sort of thing, and be able to travel as well. So that happened, and then that also kind of fell apart. But yeah.
So falling apart. Okay, cool. But that doesn't stop you. That doesn't stop you. Before we talk about that pathway there, I want to touch on something else that has come through pretty strongly so far, is the conservation stuff. Tell us about that. Where does that come from for you?
Well, my dad, he has always been a massive fan of animals, so I kind of grew up with him fostering that, and we always would watch David Attenborough because who doesn't?
Yeah.
And then I think it was year 12, I started really kind of throwing myself into the conservation stuff in Dunedin. So I was doing work with the Halo Project. I did a little bit of work with the Orokano Eco Sanctuary. And then I was doing a ton of work on Quarantine Island as well, which I'm now a community member of and an integral part of the community, which I love so much. And I've missed it so much being away these like 3 months. But yeah, so it kind of built into that. And it's just something that I really enjoyed. Kind of, it was amazing for my mental health, just being outside, being with nature. And you'd always meet amazing people and hear so many interesting stories, even if you only met them once and you'd never see them again, but you'd hear their life story and it would just be so amazing.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So a bit like how you share your life story at the moment, which is fantastic. So,
yeah.
I mean, nature is pretty amazing. You know, stuff you can get out there just for your mental health and well-being. I think we're very lucky to live in New Zealand where you can actually just do that and quite easily.
Yeah.
So all your plans disappear. What happens then for you? What happens then?
So I had that plan of like traveling around New Zealand, and I heard about coming to Stewart Island because I met someone on Quarantine Island who had been in Stewart Island in the backpackers that I am now during lockdown. And he said that he was there, he was volunteering at the community trust, doing rat trapping, and that they had this really good deal where you come and they pay for the ferry from Bluff and they give you free accommodation while you're here, and you do rat trapping. So I was like, I'm going to do that. So that's where I was going to start, and I was going to do about a month in each place. So I came down, and the backpackers were low on staff. So they asked if I wanted a job, and I said yes, because if I got the job, then I got a bedroom instead of a tent.
That's always a win, right? That's always a win.
Yeah, definitely.
Before you carry on, do you want to explain to our listeners about the climate in Stewart Island? What is it like there? Is it summery hot, or what is it like down there?
It's New Zealand weather. What can I say? It's very much like Dunedin, where it's rainy and cloudy one second and then hot and sunny the next. But it is a lot warmer in general, I think, than kind of the South Island, well, lower South Island. So there's a few days here when it's in mid to high 20s and we're like sweating, going for a swim in the absolutely freezing water because the current brings it up straight from Antarctica.
Yeah.
So the water wherever you go is absolutely freezing, even though it's been hot all day. But yeah, and the forest is like quite jungly as well, which is just amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. The reason why I want to put some context into that, because living in a tent wouldn't be ideal in Stewart Island, for a long, maybe 1 or 2 nights or 3 nights, but not for a long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the worst part about being in the tent would be the Kiwis yelling at you at 3 a.m. every morning.
Oh, crazy. So you got a job at the backpackers and you got your bed provided for you. And how long were you there for before you moved on to your next venture?
So I was there for a month. And yeah, so I was here for about a month, and I'd work in the mornings, making the beds, cleaning the toilets, cleaning the kitchen, all the glamorous work. And then in the afternoons, I'd go out and do rat trapping, and we'd find maybe about 10 rats, some of which freshly killed and kind of cute, even though they're rats and they're pests, but they were kind of cute and they were nice. And other ones were very old and filled with maggots, and it was really disgusting. So we'd go and we'd like reset the traps. So that would be basically my day. Yeah.
That sounds fun. sounds fun, galore. Yeah. So let's give us some context as well. Do you want to explain, because we have a lot of listeners that are not from New Zealand, do you want to explain why we do rat trapping as well? Why is it important?
So for Stewart Island in particular, we have a lot of kiwi, which are ground nesting birds, and as well as little blue penguins, which are also ground nesting birds. And these rats, they come in and they basically eat the eggs. So therefore these birds can't reproduce, and their population decreases. So we kill the rats, which are they pest. So they eat, not only do they eat the eggs of the birds, but they also eat the food of the birds. So the birds can't eat and can die of starvation as well. So they're not great to have around.
Yeah, so they're a pest. They're a pest in a way. I shouldn't say that. They're a pest, but they're a pest population for our native birds in New Zealand, which is what you do. You're not just trapping rats just for fun, are you?
No.
So you spend 1 month, in Stewart Island, and then so you had that mapped out for you. Then what happens next?
So I went back to Dunedin and I was like, okay, let's figure out the next step. I was hoping to do some work with Waiwanaka, and that kind of fell through. So Waiwanaka is a charity organisation from Wanaka, and they do a bunch of work with the water systems in Wanaka and the lake. So they do a lot of riparian planting, pest control, working a lot with the farmers about how to keep the tribunal streams clean, and all that sort of stuff, which was really cool. So I was planning on doing that, but that kind of fell through. So I ended up doing work with Doc in Dunedin. So I was chasing yellow-eyed penguins. Which was...
Why were you chasing them? Why were you...
So it was molt season. So during the molt season, there's one Doc Ranger, and then she leads a team of volunteers. Usually there's about 2 of us. We go out for the day and we try and find these molting penguins. So the point of them is that, so every year the yellow-eyed penguins, well, not every year, but mostly every year. Not all of them do it every year, but it's weird. They change their feathers. So they get rid of all of their old feathers and they bring in new ones. And during this period, they can't go swimming because their feathers aren't waterproof and they're changing their feathers. So they can't go swimming, therefore they can't eat. So as a Doc Ranger, they go out, we find them, we weigh them, make sure that they're a healthy weight and that they'll survive the molting period, which is I think about 4 weeks.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So if they're underweight, then we take them to Penguin Place, and we feed them up and then release them back where we found them. Yeah.
Oh, and why are yellow-eyed penguins so special?
Because I think they're endangered. Yeah. They're really cute, but they also can pack a punch. Like, don't get anywhere near them because their beaks are really sharp and they can bite you and it hurts.
Oh, so I'm guessing you've been bitten a few times?
Only once, and I still have the scar on my wrist. Yeah, it was amazing. Sadly, I couldn't do the whole season because I injured my ankle going out once. But I got, it was so amazing being able to be that close to these penguins that you aren't allowed to get that close to. And they're pretty big as well. They come up to your knee height.
Oh, wow,
and yeah, they're really stunning, but it was hard work. It was 6 hours a day of being out in this bush, and they'd have these they had these paths around the bush, and because penguins are amazing animals. I do not know how they do it, but they can basically climb up cliffs.
Oh well.
Right. So they've got these paths to where they kind of nest, and you follow their paths and you're looking for trails of feathers, because wherever there's a lot of feathers, usually that's where they are. So we'd be following these little paths, and sometimes in the bush, the path would only be as big as they are. So we were army crawling through these tunnels that had a lot of bird shit and feathers in them. And there was also a lot of stinging nettles around. So we'd be climbing around, and the days that I went, it was so hot, it was in over 20 degrees. And because you don't want to get dirty or scratched or anything, you're wearing overalls. like workers' overalls. It was insane. And then you'd like find these penguins and then you'd have to catch them, which was a whole nother deal. So the method was like, once you kind of get near them, you like push them on like the back of their shoulders. And so they'd fall face down on the ground, and then you grab them by the feet, pushing down like their shoulder blades in the ground. And then we'd kind of have to put them in a bag to weigh them. And they didn't smell nice either. But yeah, no, it was an experience, and it was really amazing thing. And I was like so excited when I was seeing them. I would go home and I'd be like, oh my God, I saw a penguin today and I got to touch it.
Yeah, that's pretty epic. Not a lot of people can say that they've done that they have basically domino dropped a penguin, right? And
Yeah.
What an experience. And what is one of your highlights from that time there? Anything that just stood out for you? Any moments?
I don't know. I think it was just amazing. Like, I don't know how to describe the feeling, but being that, you know, you're doing all this hard work, which is satisfying in itself, doing physical labor and tiring yourself out physically. But then, and the weather was always lovely, and you'd go to these amazingly stunning beaches. So we were working in Boulder Beach, which, if you guys don't know, is the bay closest to town from Santa Fe Bay. So we'd be up around there, and the beach was just amazing, though it was filled with seals. So to get to some of the places we had to go to, we had to like navigate through a maze of seals, which was slightly terrifying. But yeah, like there was just amazing views, and we'd always like stop for lunch halfway through the day, and you'd just be sitting there feeling gross because you were covered in bird shit and feathers and hot and sweaty, but you'd be in this amazingly stunning place, and you would have been so close to these amazing animals. And it's just like an experience that I would want everyone to experience, but it's so hard to be able to get in to be a volunteer, because so many people want to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh wow, how epic, and how big that is, and I'm sure that would have done wonders for your mental health at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Like, just, I mean, some people, mental health is always something that people kind of tend to not talk about, but it's just the simple things like getting up in the morning and like eating a meal can sometimes be so hard, and it was quite hard for me at times. So being able, kind of being forced, having this commitment to have to go out and be on the other side of town at 9 a.m. in the morning, knowing that, you know, I actually have to eat a good meal because otherwise I'm not going to have the energy to be able to do this, sort of thing was great. Yeah, it was really good to have that kind of structure, I guess you could say.
And that's awesome, and well done you for actually embracing it and being aware of that. So we go from trapping rats to dropping penguins. What's next on you after your injured ankle? Like, oh, now what happens now?
Quite a change of pace, actually. That's what happened. By then it was March, and I ended up coaching 3 sports teams.
Oh wow! How did you go from dropping penguins to coaching sports teams? How does it happen?
I'm not quite sure how it happened. I have been coaching for the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. I used to coach the junior A boys at Logan Park High School, which is the school I attended, and I really enjoyed it. There was the little moments. I got given this book at the end of the season, which was a Phil Jackson book, who's a famous NBA coach. And one of the guys in my team wrote, "Thanks for being the Phil Jackson to my Michael Jordan."
Oh, wow.
And it was like something like that. And I was reading it and I was like trying not to cry. So I was like, that's really sweet. So it was like, it's little things like that. And I was like, you know what? I do like coaching, and things around that I was planning on doing around New Zealand were kind of falling through. So I was like, you know what? Let's just stay in Dunedin. I can continue doing my volunteering. with the Halo project a little bit and with Quarantine Island, as well as coaching these teams. So I reached out to a bunch of schools, and I ended up coaching 2 junior, like year 9 basketball teams at OBs, and then 1 netball team at OGs.
Okay, so for our listeners, Otago girls and Otago boys. So cool. So I'm guessing basketball is your sport?
Well, it was very hazy. So I liked basketball and netball. I used to play both, but kind of playing got pulled out of the cards when I did my ACL when I was 15 and had to get reconstructive surgery. So I kind of dove into the whole coaching side of things. But yeah, I really loved both sports, but now I'm kind of focusing on the whole basketball side of stuff at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome. So here you are from having first shit all over you to now coaching teams. How was that? I mean, that would have been pretty epic for you.
It was amazing. The teams I had, everyone was so great. And it was busy and it was overwhelming and it was a lot of work. I don't think people quite understand how much work coaching is. But yeah, it was really stunning. It was a massive change of pace, but it was just as enjoyable. And yeah.
Awesome. So do you want to just break down how complex coaching is, just for you if you're in a very simple way, I guess.
For the level that I was coaching at, so I was coaching the full netball. It was the girls, year 10 girls B team. So they were quite a high level grade, especially because they're from OGs and they're a very good netball school. So with coaching, I like to describe it as you're being their mum, their friend, their mentor at the same time. So you have to make sure that they have rides to the games and rides back home after the games. You have to make sure that they have their uniform and water to drink and the right shoes. And then you have to make sure that, they're doing okay. How's the team dynamics going? Sometimes there's always drama, especially with the girls team. So, which I knew as well from being in a sports team myself, like it's always like, oh, my boyfriend broke up with me, or, this girl, we had a bitch fight. So it's like things like that. And that can affect the team on court. So you have to manage the dynamics and the chemistry on court so that even if 2 girls have had a massive fight, you need to make sure that they do actually pass the ball to each other on the court, because you need that to happen if, the opportunity arises. So things like that, but also, being able to guide them and teach them with skills and game plays as well. So it's a massive role to take in, as well as like if there are injuries on court, you have to organise the umpiring and the duty or like reffing that happens as well, which is a team duty that they have to do. But yeah, if anyone gets injured, it falls on you to sort that out, especially if you don't have a manager. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I'm glad. I like the way you summarize what a coach does. They're a parent, they're a mentor, and they're a friend. That's basically what a coach is. Tana, you've done some pretty high level sports as well. What is the coach like for you? Did they fill those roles at some point?
Yeah, definitely. I think as time goes on, you find the better coaches are all those roles. Some people come into coaching and they feel like they just are there to mentor you, and that's good. But, as you say, sometimes you need that parent figure. Sometimes you need that friend who's just willing to listen to you when you are struggling with things off the field or off the court. So it's about filling that role and actually finding what works for your players. It's easy to, as a coach, focus on something that you wish you had when you were a player. But I think as you learn to develop those skills, what you find is, okay, I need to target specifically to what that athlete needs, because it's not about me anymore. It's about how do I support this player the best. And, it doesn't matter what level they're at. And especially at the younger ages, it's more about them just enjoying actually being in the sport. And I think we are still seeing that kids are specializing too early, and I think that's a big thing that needs to change going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think we try and specialize, and then we lose out. Young people lose out the joys of trying different sports and different things. And but the world is a pretty crazy place, with this whole emphasis on specializing so you can make money and blah 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 blah. And you forget about actually just enjoying the sport, enjoying what you're doing and why you're doing it. Christina, so how long were you doing this for?
So that was the whole winter season, so from March until August, but then there was the COVID lockdown again. So sadly, we missed out on our last game of the season. So for my girls, that was their final, but they still managed to win the grade.
Awesome.
And for the boys, it was just their final game of the season. And then I'd organised a whole pizza party, which they couldn't end up going to, which sucked.
And you must have had lots of growth in that time as well, as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was there
Yeah.
any one moment that stands out for you as a moment that you went, "Wow, we've actually grown"? Some hard questions here.
Yeah, it's a very hard question. I mean, I don't know. I was still going to counselling all through last year, and so that was like a massive help, and there was a lot of breakthroughs through that. But I don't know if there would be like one particular moment as such. When I was coaching, I was living a very relaxed lifestyle. Because my coaching, I would have trainings either after school or at lunchtime, so I didn't have to get up until.
So it wasn't because they were paying you the big bucks, hence the relaxed lifestyle, hey?
And then and then games as well. But like, even though I only had an hour training with the teams, and the two basketball teams were training together, so it was only 1 hour training, and then the games on Fridays and Saturdays. It was still a lot of work. So every week I would revise the last week's game, go over, okay, what things did they do well in that game, what things do they need to improve on in that game, what things didn't go well, and then planning the practice to go over things that happened in the last week, being like, say for example, they had very bad communication, they just weren't talking to each other the whole game. We would play a lot of drills and games which would focus a lot on communication, and that would be the focus of the week. So then planning those practices, and then thinking about, okay, how are we going to play the game kind of next week as well. So it did end up being a good 10-12 hours a week that I would be focusing just on my coaching, which is a lot generally, because most of the people who are coaching, they're either at school or have a full-time job or are studying, and the coaching is completely voluntary, so it's their time.
Awesome. That's so. It's great perspective there on what was being done in their time there. So the season finishes up. There's no pizza party. What happens now?
What did happen? I don't really know much. I think what happened was that I just did a lot of work on Quarantine Island.
Yeah.
And then I decided to come back here to Stewart Island. So that was kind of the plan. Yeah.
Yep. So were you invited back to Stewart Island? Did you have to go through another process, or why did you go back to Stewart Island?
I liked it here.
Yeah.
And I really needed to get out of Dunedin. Really needed to.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it was just, I knew that if I sent them an email, they'd love to have me back here. And I just needed to get out of Dunedin after being there for another lockdown, stuck at home with my parents, and just kind of needed a break from the city that I've kind of been in for a long period of time. And there's always, especially with my mental health and everything, just being in a city where you always have a lot of bad memories, being able to catch a break from that and go and be somewhere else is always good.
Yeah. So you went to the middle of nowhere, basically, back in the jungle, essentially.
Yeah.
So You're in Stewart Island at the moment. What are you doing in Stewart Island at the moment? What are you up to there?
So I'm working at Backpackers. So I do that in the mornings, and then in the afternoons I kind of do whatever I want, which usually involves doing some coaching work. So just revising stuff and going over things, learning new drills and skills, learning philosophies, kind of understanding who I want to be as a coach, and what culture I want to bring to a team and all that sort of stuff. And then I'm doing some work with the community nursery as well.
Awesome. And amongst all that, before that, you also had an experience to do some coaching stuff in Christchurch. Do you want to tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. So I decided to change what I was going to study. So I started the year being like, everything's going to be the same. I love conservation. I'm going to go and study. I hadn't quite decided if it was going to be zoology, marine science, or marine biology yet. But I was like, that's what I'm going to go and study. End of story. And then it kind of changed because I did a lot of conservation work, and I was like, in reality, this is a hobby. And if I did this as a job, it would just completely ruin the passion that I have for it. And then with the coaching and everything, it was like, you know what, I actually really love teaching. So then I was like, I'll go to uni, and I looked into Teachers College, and I went to one of their open nights and everything. And I was like, I'll become a teacher. I'll become a biology teacher. And that kind of ties the two things in together. And then as the coaching season kind of went on, I was like, you know what, I actually really love coaching. Why don't I just dive right into the deep end? What can I lose? See how it goes, and then if it all goes to shit, then I'll move on and I'll go back to plan A, which was do conservation work, or become a teacher. So I decided to dive right in, and I emailed Greg from Basketball Otago and Lana from Netball South, and talked to them a bit about it. And I was like, look, I'm really into the whole coaching thing. What's kind of the process and the structure to kind of step up and become a high performance coach? So from then on, kind of Greg got me invited to the coaching thing in Christchurch, which was absolutely amazing. Very intimidating, but it was so amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. And what is the coaching thing in Christchurch? Tell us what that is all about.
So it was run by the Mainland Eagles, which is a basketball kind of club in Christchurch, and it was a coaching workshop but run alongside an athletes camp. So there were 80 athletes as well as 30 workshop coaches, and then another 15 workshop coaching staff. So and the coaching staff were invited from all over the South Island. The coaches were invited from all over the South Island, and the athletes as well. So these were top athletes who were senior high school age, and they were repping their region. So the course was, the workshop was over a weekend. It was crazy hours. It was full on.
Oh, so technology, a bit of a glitch there. So we're back again. Cristina, you were talking about the coaching camp. So you had athletes from all around the region, you had coaches all around the region, you had staff all around the region, and there you were working hard, basically Friday to Monday. You had to catch a plane, get back to Stewart Island. And what is that like for you? Because you've been, Monday to Friday, Friday to Monday, you've just been engaged with so many people, and then you go to Stewart Island, which is silence. What is that like?
Okay, well, first off, I want to debunk the idea of Stewart Island being in the middle of nowhere. Okay, because
go on.
When I told my friends I was coming here, they were like, oh my God, are you going to have Wi-Fi? Where are you going to get food? I'm like, okay, there is Wi-Fi here. we do have a Foursquare.
You
And
do? Wow,
there
what?
are, I know, right? And there are quite a lot of people. And because we live at the Backpackers, so I live on top of like the kitchen of the Backpackers, it's quite noisy and there's always people coming and going. And the Backpackers, because it's summer, it's like always full. So there's always people around. So it's like, yeah, it's not in the middle of nowhere. There are people, a lot of them. But yeah, no, it was definitely very much a big like shock, I guess, of things from being around people, especially because the people on the workshop were very, and no, not intimidating. I was a little bit starstruck, I must admit. These coaches are some of the top coaches in New Zealand. We had 2 assistants to the Tall Blacks and the Tall Ferns. We had an amazing skills coach, and kind of being able to have like just candid conversations with them, and they would like compliment me on like some of the questions that I'd ask, and you know, how they think I'm going to be a good coach and all this. And it was just like, I don't know what to say, and I was quite starstruck and overwhelmed about all that, just being around all of these just amazing coaches who know what they're doing, and they were all so supportive as well. So yeah, it was quite a lot to take in, and I must admit it did take me a while when I got back to Stewart Island to just kind of, you know, okay, deep breath, and then kind of relax for about a week. And then I was like, okay, let's start looking over my notes, reflecting over the camp, and you know, yeah, doing some work in that sort of sense.
And I guess that probably just reignited, well, not reignited, I'm sure the passion was there, but it just further ignited or further flared up their passion for coaching, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it definitely did. I think the theme of the camp as well was just such an amazing choice. So the theme of the camp was decision making, around athlete centered. So it was kind of set up as the kind of the 15 on-court coaches would be running sessions with the athletes, and us as the workshop coaches would be given kind of things to be looking out for from the 3 coach developers. And the things would be like, okay, we had 3 themes, like I think it was relationships, decision making, and something else which I've forgotten. But it was kind of like looking at the coaches' interactions with the athletes. So from basic things of, oh, have they learned all their names? You know, creating those relationships. So using physical touch, like high fives, fist pumps, that sort of thing kind of really builds that up, from really encouraging the athletes to be making their own decisions on court. So most of the drills were, you've got 2 choices, A and B. When on this court, are you going to pass or are you going to shoot, for example? And them having to consciously make that decision by reading the defense and kind of that sort of thing. So yeah, it was a lot of just observing coaches in action, and then being able to talk to those coaches and discuss with them, you know, why did you do that? Why did you do this? And then a lot of workshops on like balance is better. So like Tane said before, like the issues are that the kids specialize too early, which is a massive issue for quite a few reasons. But like being able to tackle those issues, and it's like bringing in a lot of questions of who do I want to be as a coach. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really, I'm glad that the passion is still there, because, you know, sometimes, you know, you do something, you think it's going to be awesome, and you're going, actually, wait a minute, this is actually not what I thought it was going to be like, or it's, you know, your perception versus reality are totally different. So I'm really glad that's happened for you. So you're finishing up pretty soon, and then what happens then for you? You finish up at Stewart Island, which is not in the middle of nowhere. It's got Wi-Fi and it's got people. Yep, just don't forget that, everybody.
So next step is, I think it's going to be very much get home, hit the ground running type of thing. So I've got about a week before I move into my college hall of residence. And that's like just kind of socializing, catching up with all my friends because I haven't seen them in like 3 months, as well as going to Quarantine Island and catching up with all of them, seeing what's happened over the last 3 months, and doing, I think they've already kind of booked me in on like doing volunteer work there because I do a lot of supervising and leadership. And then uni starts. So yeah, it's going to be a bit crazy. And then coaching as well. So I'm hopefully coaching at least one, I'm hopefully coaching a school team, and I'm assistant coaching the under 17s boys for rep, and head coaching the B team for that. So yeah, it should be a bit full on.
Oh wow, lots on your plate there, Cristina. Lots on your plate coming on. And I'm sure you'll know when you go, this is too much, or you'll go, hey, I've got to prioritize, and that's I'm sure you'll do that after all your learnings. Cristina, you've gone through quite a few things today. You've spoken about mental health, which I think is massive. You've spoken about how school was tough, but you found a way to get through that. You've spoken about how you had a pathway set that you thought you were going to be doing in college as zoology, marine science, but actually realized that, hey, you don't want to kill your passion by making a job. A lot of times people say follow your passion to your job, but sometimes you go, actually, my passion is I enjoy it because I'm just enjoying it. There's no financial reward. It's just me. So that's pretty awesome. And then you found out what you really, really enjoy in terms of a career pathway, which is fantastic. So there's some amazing things you've spoken about today. And now you are looking forward to what happens next. And I like what you said. You're just going to see what happens. You just take it day by day and see what happens. Which is pretty cool. When we end our podcast, Cristina, we like to end with the title of our podcast is Baskets of Knowledge. And we think that everybody has some knowledge to pass on. And if you were going to pass on any bits of knowledge to our listeners, what would you say?
Put me on the spot there.
Oh.
I don't know. I think that people should know that like life plans change always. Everyone's like, oh, you should have this all set out. It's good to have dreams and goals, but if something doesn't go to plan, then maybe that's a good thing, I guess. If I hadn't if my gap year hadn't happened, I'd be doing a career that I didn't really love. I loved it, but not enough to be able to do it every day. So I guess just kind of take it as it is and make the most of every opportunity you have.
And like I said, because plans can change. Too many times people are fixated that they have to know what they need to do. When you finish up school, when you're doing something, you have to know what's next. It's okay. Yeah. And like I said, plans change, and sometimes they change for the right reason. You just don't know what you don't know. But I still think the key takeaways I have from you from today is what you said about if you have two things in a day, one for your mental health and one to be productive. I think that's a golden nugget right there. I guess it's a good place for us to end our podcast. Thanks for being on here, Cristina. And
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
No worries, and all the best for next year. And we look forward to seeing you climb that coaching rank. And just remember, when you become famous, you were here first.
Definitely.
Take care and enjoy the rest of your time in Stewart Island.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Bye, everybody. So thanks a lot, everybody, for listening to another podcast. As always, this podcast will not happen without you. So please feel free to share, like, comment, and tell us what you'd like to hear about. Wherever you're in the world, hopefully you've enjoyed this. And from Ty and myself, thank you very much and speak to you next time. Bye.